For Wednesday captive audience. And I'm Sunny Danforth and my co host, Don Anderson. It's great to be back. I missed last week because we had Roundup, and I do live, 27 miles from Pendleton, and had a booth, a Republican booth at Roundup. And actually over in the Dairy Queen parking lot. So we're right in the throes, right next to the stadium and whatnot. And the weather held. It was nice. And Trump won the straw poll, like way hands down.
That's awesome. And you were in the Dairy Queen parking lot to boot. That's like being in heaven.
Well, right. They shut the Dairy Queen is open for business. There's no
Mhm,
drive through. And so that's really quite nice. And they do
mhm,
a lot of business there.
mhm.
And so yeah, we rent space in the parking lot and have for a few years now.
Well, I tell you,
It's a
if I was on death row, I would ask for my last meal to be a peanut butter parfait.
I've never had one of those.
Oh my goodness, you haven't lived until you had a peanut butter.
Okay, well,
You gotta do it.
I'll have to try one. I'll have to try one of those. So yeah, and the weather held. It was nice. It was hot. There was so many people out. In fact, I don't know this all the statistics, but I heard that they had 500 more entrants, people that wanted to be involved
Mhm,
in contestants in Roundup
mhm.
than before.
Wow.
And so I will tell you, the first day, normally at the convention center, the parking lot is not full of horse trailers,
Mhm,
but it was chock-a-block full
mhm.
of horse trailers. And they
Wow.
have a lot of slack, they have the bulls going on,
Mhm,
and then they have slack going with roping and bulldogging and all of
mhm,
that. And then the next day, all those trailers that were
mhm,
in this one particular section of the parking lot, poof,
mhm.
they were gone.
Oh,
And I went, wow, where'd they go? Well, those are people that got eliminated, I
okay.
think,
Mhm.
right from the first day. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like
yeah.
a great time.
Well, it was, I enjoy talking to people and talking to them about, well, we had 4 petitions for them to sign, 2 education, one is school choice, one's the funding following the students, which you can go to
Mhm,
Oregon for education, freedom.com. I probably just slaughtered the name, but it's
mhm.
pretty close to that. Let's see. I think I have a thing right here from them. Yes, education, freedom for Oregon. You gotta
All right.
go to their page and download a single signer and even a 10 page, and go help get some
Mhm.
signatures for that.
Okay.
And for both of those, but talking to people, registering people, we had independents come up and go, I'm an independent, I'm voting for Trump. They're voting in our straw poll. I'm Democrat, I'm voting for Trump. Don't
That's
want to change my party affiliation, which I can't understand that.
right.
But,
Yeah.
hey, that's their right. And I just
Sure.
go, okay, and they're voting for Trump.
Mhm.
So it's interesting
Yeah.
having the conversation, having that straw poll out there.
Mhm.
And in fact, I remember 2 people that came up and they voted for Mike Pence.
Mhm.
And as the days went on, other people come up and go, somebody actually voted for him. It was like, I was just like, yeah, well, you know what? It's a
It's
free country.
it is a free country. I mean, I don't know how you arrive at that one, but hey,
Right,
each to his own, right? You
right.
know? Well, yeah, I saw like a national poll. I can't remember what outfit put it together, but it was like a really credible one that had Trump winning now. With like over he has over 50% of the vote now. Um, so it's pretty amazing for someone that every I should say every large media operation has been out to destroy. For him to be at 50% and with the media blackout on anything that he's done positive is pretty amazing. It's either a testament to how great he was or a testament to how atrocious the current administration is. Probably a combination.
I think it's a combination. And that's it, like talking with the people about we've got to have him back, because what's happening now, we're getting destroyed. And it's conversations. you just, because it's 4 days of conversation and
Hmm.
talking to people and selling Trump flags. We have a now in Umatilla County Republicans, we have a button machine, so we made up a bunch of buttons
Hmm.
in preparation of that and selling them, and we did well. We did financially, we did well, but it's really, I love talking to people and
Hmm.
engaging with them and having the conversation. And sometimes you just have people stop by the booth because they want to talk to more like-minded people.
Sure, sure.
And we're finding that even at our campaign office.
You mean thinking people?
Yes. Yes.
Well, what I think what happens is you are so awash in negative stuff that you know is a lie,
Yeah.
that it's like it's so refreshing to realize you get thinking you're the only one, and you start wondering, am I crazy? I mean, I remember having those feelings at one point, like way back. This is go back to the Reagan era. Like, am I crazy? And that was one of the beautiful things about. I think I might have told you this about. I stumbled across the Rush Limbaugh show when I was like 30, and it was so cool because okay, it was like a confirmation I'm not nuts, right?
Right. Right. No, you're not nuts. And that goes back to, we've lost some great patriots, but people have been talking about the problems that we have in our country and the decline of our country for decades, quite frankly.
Hmm.
And many, many people haven't been listening or paying attention until it's really got bad. I mean, there's a certain amount of people that knew, and I can say for me, long ago, I'd go, I don't know about that. Is that really what's going on?
Yeah.
Being a bit skeptical, but after seeing so many things that they deem conspiracy theories all coming true and
Well,
happen.
well, the cancer of liberalism is like think of it like cancer. It has to metastasize, and it's there for a long time before you finally feel symptoms. I mean, you might have breast cancer, lung cancer, whatever the kind of cancer is, for years before it finally shows up. And if you were looking closely, if you had an examination, you would find that cancer early. We weren't looking; it was there, lurking and growing the whole time. You go back to the
Yes,
70s and 80s when there was lawsuits over being able to have a cross in a public place when you
I
couldn't have,
remember those.
yep, you couldn't have a Bible in school. You can't, talk about Ten Commandments. You can't say the Pledge of Allegiance. And we just kept like letting them get away with stuff. Chip, 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 chip. Right? Your daughter can get an abortion at public school without you knowing about it. I mean, think about how outrageous that once upon a time that would have been outrageous. And finally, the next thing you know it, we got gay marriage, right?
Right, right. And
Right?
shoved
All
down our throat, quite frankly.
right, shut down. Yeah.
Like California voted twice,
Mhm.
voted it down, and the
Mhm.
governor says, "Nope, we're doing it." And
Right.
talk about not listening to the people. Lori, real quick, yes, we had the constitutional carry petition as well as the toll petition,
Mhm.
and so those were the four that we had. So talking about cancers, that's exactly what's been going on in our country, eating away slowly, but now it's pedal to the metal. And the vaccines apparently have really accelerated that. So I just posted an article from the Epoch Times that this is quoting Dr. Harvey Risch, who is professor emeritus of epidemiology in the Department of Epidemiology and Public Health at the Yale School of Public Health and Yale School of Medicine. His research is focused extensively on the cause of cancer as well as prevention and early diagnosis. And this article says the headline is Cancers Appearing in Ways Never Before Seen After COVID Vaccinations. And so this is a person who he has studied, his career has been studying cancers and what's causing them and how to treat them and whatnot. And so he says that there's evidence that cancers are occurring in excess after people receive the shot. And so he did an interview with Epix TV American Thought Leaders. I really enjoyed that program.
Mhm.
And so there's just lots more that are happening. And so he says, what is strange is 25-year-olds with colon cancer who don't have family histories of the disease. And
Mhm.
that's basically impossible along the known paradigm for
Mhm.
how colon cancer works and
Mhm.
other long latency cancers that they're seeing in very young people. And he said, this is not how cancer normally develops.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, you look at we've seen this gigantic bump in the cardiovascular events, the neurological events, and the cancers took a little longer, but we're starting to see the impact of the vaccines in that as well. And what's so awful about the whole thing is that big media is unwilling to like even look at it, even speak about it, pretend like it doesn't exist. We have all of these celebrities and sports people all over the globe that are dropping dead like all the time, and these are young people again, like
Yeah.
under 40. I mean, they're older. It's happening to older people too, but it's especially revolting when it's happening to young people who are not just fit, but professional athletes. You can't get any more fit than that.
I
Uh,
can't believe the athletes that we're seeing just dying, even on the field.
yeah, and
Read about the person that has passed
mhm,
suddenly,
mhm.
but there's lots of video out there that is undeniable of them just keeling over,
Yeah,
on the
and they'll,
field.
and they'll and in the years past, you have speculated forever about why somebody, oh, there was this or that. There's absolutely zero speculation. It's in their interest of their family's privacy. We can't even discuss it. It's it's like hilarious. And the more they do that, the more obvious it is that something's sideways.
Yeah, and so Dr. Risch talks about that cancer actually, he says cancer is something a healthy human body can fight and disable, um, as the non-normal cancer cells are gobbled up when detected in the body with a functional immune system. But if the immune system is compromised, it cannot cope with the task of neutralizing cancerous cells, and cancerous cells are left to multiply and grow, leading to the symptoms of cancers. And he says that he says we know that the COVID vaccines have done various degrees of damage to the immune system in a fraction of people who have taken them. And so that damage could translate to getting COVID more often, getting other infections, diseases, or even getting cancer. And so I thought it was important for us to talk about this because you're not seeing this in anywhere in the media much. You have to look for other articles, and there's adverse events after having the shot.
Mhm.
And some of these cancers are so aggressive that between the time they're first seen and when they come back for treatment after a few weeks, they've grown dramatically. And
Mhm.
oncologists are not normally seeing this type of thing, but
Mhm.
this is what they're seeing now. And where you might be able to just wait a short time to see an oncologist, now the waiting line is long.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, because the left has decimated the medical profession. Think of all the people who retired or quit the practice because they were going to be forced to get a shot, and that's not the only profession, of course. And so as a result, now you got lines forever. It's incredible.
Yeah, so he ends saying that, basically, there's no reason for people to be vaccinated now to any degree. He said COVID has become an illness similar to the flu in its degree of severity, and that propaganda to scare people is being pushed by the government on behalf of pharmaceutical companies to sell more vaccines. And we live in social contact with each other and therefore spread low level infections. And
Mhm.
that's just part of human life that we take for granted, and we try to treat it as best we can. And just I said from the very beginning when we had that 2 weeks to slow the curve,
Mhm.
I went, where's that going to stop? And we've never, ever,
You
ever, ever have we quarantined.
you misheard. It was 452 weeks to slow the curve.
Well, yes, but they started with 2 weeks to slow the curve, and I'm going, I don't think so. That never computed with
It
me
was a
ever.
very, very gentle curve. But you look at this sort of thing, and you really have to wonder about the motivations. I mean, look, obviously, it's a perverse incentive for the pharmaceutical companies. You have a product where there is no liability, right? It doesn't matter if the product kills you. Number one. Number two, the government is going to force people to take the product, right? What better model in the world could there be? You're selling something that you can't be held liable for, and the government's forcing the end user to buy it. And on top of all that, it hasn't even been studied. I mean, who in their right mind, just on the surface, if we weren't talking about vaccines, we're talking about anything else, people would revolt immediately. But on this, I can't think of another product or service where you can't sue if you're harmed.
Right.
But that's what we have here. It's a beautiful scam if you're a farmer. It's one of the most immoral things that's ever been done in history. But that's what we have. Then the other side you have to ask yourself is there are those that would like to see the population reduced. Um, what a brilliant plan if you're of that mindset.
Yeah. Yes. There's a lot going on in our world, and this is one. Now, today, I have to say, along the lines of all of this, I was at a county commissioner meeting this morning to talk on a subject and ask them to. I needed some information, so I wanted to talk on a subject, and I was pleasantly surprised by four citizens that were there to ask the county commissioners to adopt a resolution that in our county there won't be a shutdown. There won't be. We're not going to do this all over again. And they gave them a resolution that's been adopted by another county, Coos County.
Hmm.
And I wasn't aware of that. And I went, wow, I read it out in the hallway before we went in there. And frankly, I think that's a good thing. I think all the counties should be talking to the county commissioners, and because what we all experienced is absolutely unconstitutional. There are no essential workers. All the businesses that make our world go round in our communities are all essential. There's a stepping stone, as the money's passed around and whatnot.
Hmm.
And to keep, it never made sense that the big box stores could stay open, but the mom and pops couldn't. Totally unconstitutional. And the shuttering, trying to keep churches from
Hmm.
the congregation. It's absolutely unconstitutional, and so we have to not let that happen again in our country.
And see, the thing is, it does make sense if you think of it through the mindset of the evil Marxist. If you can just have the big box companies survive and kill off all the smaller businesses, you only have a handful of businesses. Those are much easier to control. Millions and millions of, as Milton Friedman would say, small is beautiful. That's difficult. That's difficult to control. That's why lots of units operating at the same time in competition with each other. That aligns beautifully with freedom. When you start having only a few gigantic players, now the government or a band of Marxists can come over and take it over and destroy it. Look at what they've done with the public school system. A perfect example of that. 90% of the population goes to public school, infiltrate that and destroy it. And we've seen they've done that with big business. This is like the central problem with government when it gets too big. This is one of the reasons why the founders were so big on small government. That's why we have
Yeah.
50 states. The separation of powers. All of that's designed to make it very difficult for a handful of lunatics to get a hold of the levers of power, and that's what we have going on now. They've gotten too much power, and we got to take it back from them.
Well, we do, and it's definitely a battle. It's a battle, and even at times it's a daily battle, quite frankly. But it's by talking about it and helping to educate more people about it. I think I think that's all a good thing. So
Yeah.
hey, here's and if I don't think we'll ever pass that statewide. So I think it's great for counties to take that on and say thanks, but no thanks. And
Right.
there's going to be some counties that won't do it, for sure. And I hope ours does.
And I'm sure there'll be some law enforcement people who refuse to enforce it. You can pass all the rules you want. People don't have to obey them. Um,
Yeah, they're not laws either.
mhm.
What transpired. They said, "Oh well, that's really it was only a recommendation."
Right,
They
right.
said after the fact, after we sicked the law on you.
Mhm.
It's after the fact. Anyway,
I think a prime example of what could happen is you look at what the governor of New Mexico tried to pull last week with regard to gun rights. Well, that same thing would apply to lots of stuff. So she's just going to like declare the Constitution null and void, and she has the power to do this. What more tyrannical thing could you possibly do than that? And clearly, the pushback was huge, and she got rolled. And I think people are going to be pretty much like that with the next thing they pull. That was great. That was a great, trial balloon that they just ran in New Mexico. Because with this next election coming up, they're going to have to try everything under the sun, particularly with the polling being the way it is. So I'm not sure which. I sort of expect the climate freak out show to be the next thing. That doesn't mean you pull all the levers at the same time. You got the climate, you got masking, you got vaccine. I mean, there's going to be starting a war someplace, right? I mean, you name the lever and something we can't think of. It's going to be October surprise times 10. That's what you can
well,
expect.
I think you're right there, but and I do think that that was a try. Let's see what happens. Oh, I'm just going to suspend it for 30 days. The First Amendment and the Second Amendment for 30 days. It's just a temporary suspension.
Yeah.
And no, that didn't fly. And even the attorney general there said, no, that's not working here. And the
I mean,
sheriffs said, no,
what's
that's
more the
not.
definition of tyranny? So one person can declare an emergency and shut everybody's life down. It's
Well,
crazy.
it's been long thought after the whole COVID thing that, oh my gosh, for health, because, she was doing this in the name of a health emergency.
Right. Hmm.
And that's what we just experienced,
Hmm.
for 2+ years.
Hmm.
And you know what? There is nothing in our Constitution, can't talk about other nations, but there's nothing in our Constitution that suspends our rights. Nothing. Zero.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't matter what goes on, that
See,
it suspends our
that's the way
Constitution.
they have to do things, though. They can't do things through elected representatives because they know they'll lose. In a fair and honest discussion or debate, they're never going to win on these kind of cases. This is how they got through Roe v. Wade the first time around. This is how they got gay marriage. This is how they get everything, is by some extrajudicial, procedure that they can pull without getting the people's vote involved. I don't think there was a single state that voted on whether to have mask mandates or not. I
Yeah.
thought that was like just unbelievable that these Congress people. I still don't understand it to this day why the representatives in Oregon and Washington, I could speculate anyway, why didn't come together and demand how could we let the executive usurp our powers that way? I mean, yeah, you might get this emergency thing for 30 days, but at some point there's got to be a vote on that. And it
But
never
in Oregon, the Democrats were in superpower at the supermajority at that time.
happened.
So the Republicans could do nothing.
Mhm.
And the Democrats, of course, are willing to go along with that. And
Yeah.
that's why now they are not in the supermajority. That's why we picked up seats. The Republicans picked up seats
Mhm.
because of what happened, even in purple counties. And we picked up another another seat in Congress. With Congresswoman Lori Chavez DeRemer in, I think she's in CD. I think she's in CD5, and it was because of that.
Mhm.
So,
Well, that's a perfect illustration of why you don't want one party rule. I mean, you start
oh
having
yeah,
stuff happen, and we've seen what's happened in Washington, Oregon, and California in the last 30 years. It's been one party rule, and all three states have been trashed, particularly the major metropolitan areas. And by every statistical measure relative to where they were 30 years ago, they're atrocious.
yeah. Well, hey, on another story that I thought we should talk about is, there's an investigation still ongoing about January 6th, but now the Republicans are in control, right, of Congress, and so they've had some testimonies going on, and this story came out in the New York Post. I've got two stories here. One from the New York Post says the FBI lost count of how many paid informants uh, they that were at the Capitol on January 6th and later performed an audit to figure out the exact number.
Wow. Wow.
That's like it's not hard to believe because saw, remember watching some of the videos and we saw the police there opening the gates, their barricades, and waving for people to come in, and enter the grounds and whatnot. But the sham of what has gone on in let's see if I got that story right.
Yeah, that whole thing never passed the sniff test. I mean, I tried not to follow up because it was so obvious to me. But on the surface, if you have an election with as much emotional energy around it as that, you would have the thing staffed, and you would have police, and you'd have the thing surrounded, and nobody be able to get in.
Right,
Period.
right.
I mean, clearly they wanted something to happen. Um,
Yeah, that's definitely the way that looks. And here I've got that other story now. I didn't have it for some reason. But and then the one from PJ Media says there were more feds embedded at Capitol riot than previously thought.
mhm.
So truth is coming out, and I do believe that I hope, my heart goes out to all of those that are still in jail and living in these horrible conditions that they're in and they should not be, and those that have been tried and convicted in the sham court.
That
But
yeah,
because this was definitely, in my viewpoint, a government operation.
that could
And
happen to people in the United States really blows my mind. I remember being amazed at the show trials and the sham trials they had in the Soviet Union when I was in high school. And you're thinking, wow, we'd never have that here. And then to see it actually happen to people here, I can't imagine.
right, people in Guantanamo Bay are treated better than the people from January 6th that are in DC jails. And nobody will get a fair shake at all in a DC court, and in my opinion, and because of just what's gone on. But there shouldn't be nobody should have been tried because, and I understand some people have been convicted. They weren't even there. What's the fellow Proud Boy? I think he's a Proud Boy
Mhm.
guy,
Right,
and
right.
he was convicted. He wasn't even there, and and others just for being on the grounds there.
Yeah,
This is wrong. We have the right. That was absolutely a peaceful protest, although though I think there was a lot of egging on, and I don't know to what level the paid informants,
hmm,
at what level, what they did. Were they the ones breaking the windows?
hmm,
Were they the ones? Uh, I know that I feel that they were instigating this
hmm.
more and more because other people were just going, "Oh no, I'm not going in there."
Sure. Oh, I tell
And
you, I guess
some were carried in just by the wave of the crowd.
my guess is that the government did the breaking and destroying themselves
Yeah.
because that's what they wanted to promote.
Yes, and it's coming out, the truth about, and thank you, Lori, about Pelosi, because they keep saying, well, did Trump request anything? Well, wait a minute. You know what? Capitol Police, it comes from the ground up, right? They go, we need this, we need these, let's bring the National Guard in, but they were all denied.
Hmm.
It was all denied when it was asked, do you want this? To bring other troops in and what, but because that would have thwarted this government sham. And I just feel for the people. And of course, they're using them to use them as an example
Sure.
so that the people will not rise up again.
How Soviet.
Yeah.
That's the philosophy. Cut off the head, right? That's the philosophy.
Yes, it is. And so here, you have the FBI has to do an audit to figure out how many were actually there. Oh my goodness.
Right.
We don't know because the different departments.
Mhm.
And so, they had to do an audit to figure out just how many they were in the crowd. I don't have the answer of how many there was. It's not in this article, but they have identified many. So,
Yeah, and governments do this sort of thing all the time. And again, it's like, people have a lack of knowledge of history. Otherwise, they wouldn't fall so easily for this stuff. And they point to things like, oh, it's just another conspiracy. But the governments do this all the time. When I don't want to say when Germany invaded Poland to kick off World War II, the first thing they did was they had some German soldiers dress up like Polish troops and have them pretend like they invaded the border so they could start the war, and then blame it on the Poles. That this is nothing new.
right.
This is what
So
this is what
I
governments do.
I do have some numbers, but I don't know how many paid informants.
Mhm.
But the FBI had at least 18 undercover agents, plus an estimated 20 from Department of Homeland Security, plus the paid informants, of which we don't have that number.
Yeah, these people didn't seem to be too interested in stopping the so-called insurrection.
Yeah, yeah. I'll tell you what, nobody showed up there with arms.
Also, that's a pretty
And,
weak insurrection, by the way. No arms.
right? Right?
I thought
It
it was a
is.
dangerous crowd.
You're not trying to overthrow your government if you don't have arms there.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Not at
Unbelievable.
all. And yeah. Hey, well, we have some good news. I think it is anyway. It was announced yesterday that the Oregon Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum has announced she is not running for re-election,
Hmm.
and for what would be a fourth term, by the way, a fourth term. So I think that's good news because when you have an open seat, it's easier to elect somebody really good to running for an open seat. Now, of course, I'm sure the Democrats have got somebody up in mind that will run, but I'm posting right now. Will Lathrop is a conservative, and he is running for attorney general. And we've got to get behind him. This guy has got experience. He's got morals and scruples. He's got everything. He checks all the boxes. And he
Yeah.
came and talked with our central committee. I've met with him before. I
Mhm.
will tell you, yes, I am a donor to his campaign.
Mhm.
And this is the fellow. He's got experience that we need him. And yes, we can have him on captive
Oh,
audience.
what a
A
great idea,
hundred
Lori.
percent. We can have him on captive audience more than once, in fact.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I will line that up,
Mhm.
but we need to get behind Will Lathrop. I don't know of anybody else that has run, but we cannot have what we had at our last election, a fellow running for as a Republican who's not an attorney. The guy's a crook and running on the Republican ticket.
Yeah. Well, he
So
was in
we're
fine company with the Democrats.
yeah. So we don't want that. And by with Will Lathrop on there, we're not going to have it. So
And it's such an incredibly important position because the reality is the laws we have are sufficient. They just don't enforce them. I
yes,
mean, that's
yep.
where we are. We don't enforce them.
No, we don't. No, we don't. And with him, with a strong attorney general, it will get enforced.
Yeah.
Because if other district attorneys aren't doing their job, that's where the attorney general can step in
Mhm.
and make sure prosecutions happen, or other things. It doesn't always have to be prosecutions going, oh no,
Right.
no,
Mhm.
we're not
Yeah.
trying that. You're not doing that.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, which hasn't happened in Oregon in a long time,
Yeah.
obviously. A long time.
All righty. Well, hey, everybody. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining us on Captive Audience. We'll get Will on. We will get Will
If we're
on
willing, Lord willing.
on here. And hey, have a great night. And it's wonderful to see you, Don. I'm still recovering from, truthfully, from Roundup because it's been pretty busy for me even since after that. So
Mhm.
we'll be back on Friday
All right, you all take care. Thanks much.
night.
Good night.